Welcome to the funnel. My name is John Shane. I'm president of Alignment Group. This is episode number 215 of the funnel. Should I promote my best sales rep to sales manager? Before we get started, I want to remind you, head on over to alignment-group.com/the funnel. Subscribe, and we will send you the show notes weekly. This week's agenda: wrong question, risky business, culture, and careful planning. So let's get started with wrong question. So I get that question, right? So, John, should I hire my best sales rep as my sales manager or promote my best sales rep to sales manager? And I don't know. When you put it that way, I have no idea, because it's really the wrong question to ask. And I think a lot of times the reason why that's coming out that way and the reason they're looking at this is because of some level of fear. And that fear can be associated with the fact that maybe the top rep's putting some pressure on them. They want to be the sales manager and they want to get paid in the same way they've been paid in the past. Maybe internally they're afraid of losing this person, so they give them what they want, or they give them what they think they want. They make them a sales manager and they pay them to do the job of the sales manager. And I think that drives a lot of this. Whose idea was it? Was it your idea? Was it your rep's idea? Where did this come from? And why are you asking it that way? I think there are some ways to approach this, and this isn't one of them. So the question you should be asking yourself, do I have a need for a sales manager? Maybe I have a vacancy, or I'm expanding to the point where I need somebody to do the management thing for me because I'm running the company and I need a manager. Or the company's just growing and you need a second manager, a third manager, whatever the reason. Keep in mind this is a separate job from selling, completely separate job. It's different requirements and different skill sets. So I'm not sure that I'd frame the question that way. It could be that your top sales rep is perfect for the management role, and then that brings a whole host of other issues to the table. So I think that's why I say it's the wrong question, because you're not asking it. Generally, you're not asking it because you think it's the natural course of things. It's some fear or pressure. And even if you think it's the natural course, okay, they come in, I hired them, they became very successful, eventually became the number one rep in the company. It just seems natural to move them into a selling manager or even a management role. And I think, that comes with some risky business, right? Because it's a bit of a game here. First, you're losing a rep. Pull a rep out of a territory and you make them the manager, you're losing a rep. Now, some of you might say, well, if it's a selling sales manager, great. How much time are they going to dedicate to sales management? Let's say it's 40%. You're losing 40% of your sales rep. 20%. You're still losing something. And you're only gaining a 60% sales manager and 80%, whatever it is. So you really, is that going to work for you? They could be a really bad manager. Now you have a real problem on your hands. Maybe you've successfully replaced in their territory. Where do they go now? Do they start over again, build? That's their reward and you're going to say, well, they didn't work out as manager. How's that my responsibility? I don't know. Maybe you didn't develop them properly. You promoted them without any real thought or program in place and gave them a position that they were destined to fail for. How much responsibility do you have for that? Only you can answer that. I think you have a lot. My opinion, you have a lot. So you're losing not only a bad manager, you've lost your rep, your top rep, and a manager. So I'm not trying to strike fear into folks out there. I'm just telling you the truth. There's all kinds of cultural issues associated with that, right? So if you have to move someone backwards, or maybe you don't hire them because of everything I've just said here, you don't move them into a management role. Okay. Well, if you don't really have a program or a plan, and you don't have anything in place for development and growth with the company, it stands to reason you're going to create bigger issues for yourself because you're going to lose people who feel they can't grow with your company. They need to go somewhere else to grow. So you understand when you go down this road and you ask this question, there's a lot of risk involved. And that requires you to put a little bit more thought into it. So don't think of it as a defensive measure, because I think that's what I see, defensive measures, right? I'm going to move them into this role because I don't want to lose them. Worst case scenario, move them back to sales. Well, there's no guarantee they're going to be as successful when you move them back. First, their ego took a huge hit. Maybe things have changed in the territory. It could be a year later and somebody else has all their accounts and they're forced to start over again. And maybe they don't want to do that. So it's not as if it's that easy. That's what I'm talking about here. That's why I'm mentioning cultural issues and bigger issues. You really need to put some thought into your program and how that's going to look and what that's going to look like, because the risks are high. And I'm not talking about just them. Okay, you put somebody in that role, move them into the management role, and they're not good at it, they're not good enough, you risk losing other sales reps. Okay, so maybe you risk the people right below this person. Maybe they were just a superstar, and you've got some really solid performers, always above quota, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they get this bad manager in place. What do you think they're going to do? Good people have choices. They're going to leave. Bigger issues. Now you've got other reps thinking about leaving. And I'm going to pile one more on top of that. If they're a bad manager, it stands to reason they can't hire salespeople. They're not very good at it. And maybe they make some bad hires. Maybe you put them in a position to hire and you let them go ahead and do it, and they make some bad hires. So you can see it's a house of cards. So I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you what I'm really trying to get you to understand is that you need to think differently about this. That's what I'm saying. Culture. Start with that. The culture of coaching and development. Do you have a culture like that in place? Have you begun to spin that up? Do you have an emphasis on growth? We all know that sales reps will perform to the level that their manager expects them to perform at, and that's where they'll level off as a team. So do you have that emphasis on growth and development? Do you have clear expectations, not only of your sales reps, but of your managers? What does that look like? Do you have a defined process for promotion? And do you build a team of bench players? Okay, some of you might say, well, I can't afford that. I have 3 reps. I can't have a bench. Fine. How about a bench of candidates? Do you have a bench of candidates, people you talk to on an ongoing basis about maybe coming to work for your company, but you don't have an opportunity yet? So you're building that bench up. So what I mean by the culture is, do I have the programs in place that say to my sales team, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is your opportunity to grow. We're a culture of coaching and development. We want you to get better at what you do. And why do we want to do that? Well, for selfish reasons. All the documentation's out there. Just do the research. That documentation will tell you, all the research and role will tell you, a culture of coaching and development yields higher results, higher growth, happier employees. It's an all-around better solution. So if you have that built in place, you have an emphasis on growth. You've heard me talk about coaching and development and growth. And you clearly define the role of the salespeople. You hold them accountable. You tell them this is how it works for moving forward in this company. Maybe you're the kind of person that could develop into the role of manager. Maybe you could develop into another role here. But this is what it looks like, and you build those bench players. Well, that's the culture you need. And that says, I'm not going to hire my best rep as my manager because that's the benchmark, how much they've sold. Maybe you have somebody that is your second, third, or fourth best rep. They meet the quota criteria. They've shown leadership and been held accountable, and they do the right things, and they show up for meetings on time, and they do everything they're supposed to do in this culture of coaching and development. They receive the coaching and development. They implement what they're taught. Maybe that's a person that's ready for the role of management. If the singular criteria is sales, revenue, or profit, you're in trouble. Big trouble. Because go back a couple of minutes. They're two completely different jobs. Go back to other podcasts I've done. These are different jobs. And you're not going to know what you have available to you as management material unless you change the culture. Unless you move in this type of direction. Can't be done. Because the criteria is wrong. That's why you read all the articles out there that say, don't hire your best rep. I don't know the answer to that. It's a stupid premise telling you not to. It's also stupid to tell you to do it because they've sold a lot. What I'm telling you is, I don't know. But in this kind of culture, I'll know if this person is capable of it. I just got off the phone a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine I worked with years ago. Number one sales rep last year in the company. And he goes back and forth. Maybe next year will be number 2 and the following year will be number 1. But he's in the top 2 as a general rule, 20 years running. Under no circumstances on this earth would I make him a manager. He knows that. He doesn't want to be a manager. He's a great sales rep. He doesn't have the patience to develop and coach people. He doesn't have the desire to help other people get better, though he's a great team player. You ask him a question, he's going to help you. You're a brand new rep. He'll stop what he's doing and answer the question. Very nice person. Ethical as the day is long. But he's not a leader. He doesn't want to manage. That's what I'm talking about. There are other people that have performed great, but less than him, that I would definitely make managers, that I've worked with. So put this culture in place, or do a little soul searching and decide, do I have this culture in place? And can I accurately determine whether someone is capable of performing in that role? Okay. What does it take to move forward with that? Careful planning. Okay. Let's assume you have that culture, everything we just talked about. Let's just assume that's in place. Okay, if it's not, then you should start working on that, because that's what really needs to happen. You say, well, I need a manager now. I can't help you. Then you might want to go out and hire a virtual sales manager for hire. I've done that for folks. It's been very helpful. And then I've helped them create the transition process, the process for building that culture and then planning to develop from within, hiring a sales manager from the outside in some cases. So careful planning. First, you have to think about the revenue you're going to replace and the process for conversion. I'm not telling you should hold back someone's development and growth with your company because you're being selfish and you want to replace the revenue. You should be thinking about this all along. Part of their development plan, if they decide and you decide collectively that their leadership quality is to build out a program for them that moves them towards that inevitable someday. And it's very clear to them that we're going to bring in your replacement in the territory, and we need to make sure that we transition out of that territory appropriately, because we want to replace the revenue that we're losing with you with someone else. Are we going to just stop for 2 years and wait for the right person? No. If we have a good plan in place and a good hiring process for a sales rep, or we have someone that we've developed internally that's maybe in a different area, again, it's like a domino effect, then that's fine. You just have to understand that, in my opinion, that's a nice move. Where am I going to get? If I promote Kathy on January 1, what am I going to do with her territory? Do I have somebody to replace her? So what is that process for conversion? What does that look like? And do I have the support mechanisms in place to make that happen? And what do I mean by that? Well, it's a domino effect. So if you're moving somebody internally into the management role, it's likely someone else is going to ask for that territory. So you're going to have to go through the process there. And if you have a development program in place, that makes all the sense in the world. But that person needs to be replaced. And who's going to do the hiring and onboarding and training? So you want to make sure that you have all those support mechanisms in place for moving the needle forward. It's careful planning. You want a sales management onboarding plan because you can't do it yourself if you own the business. You can't just throw them to the wolves. They'll get crushed, and your revenue will suffer significantly. Well, why don't I just bring in someone with the experience? You can do that. You still need the planning process. You still need the hiring process. You still need a job description, a job profile, and assessment. You still need all that stuff because you want to make sure you bring the right person in. But a new sales manager is going to come with old baggage and old stuff that they learned in another job. You want to make sure that they fit your culture and do the things the way that you want them done. Yes, I will take recommendations from you, but let's have some success first before we start changing things. Because this is what we like to do. This is how we like to do it. So your planning process involves the team. It involves that person saying, okay, we're ready to take the next step forward, whether it's the top rep or another rep in the company that is they're ready for management. You say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and here's the plan. And they're part of that. And they were part of that through their entire development program. So to summarize this, it's simple. Don't ask the question, should I hire my top rep as my sales manager? That's not the question you should be asking. What you should be asking is, what's my culture of coaching and development? How do I get people to move forward? Not only in their role that they're in now in sales, because they sell more in that kind of culture, right? But what's their plan for the future? And if they meet the criteria for management, what's the plan to get them there? Not, should I hire my best? Then your criteria is off. You know your criteria is off when you ask that question. Of course, you have minimal acceptable criteria to become a manager. You can't have somebody at 40% of quota, you make them a manager. That makes no sense. You have to do a little bit better than that. So think about that. Subscribe to The Funnel, alignment-group.com/The Funnel. You can find us on social media, Facebook. We're doing a little more on our Facebook pages these days. At Shay John R. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Find me there as well. You can email me, jshay@alignment-group.com. And my website is alignment-group.com. If you email me and I don't get back to you like that day, don't sweat it. I get a lot of emails, so I have to respond within the next day or so. So I'm usually pretty good about getting back to folks in a reasonable amount of time. But go ahead and stop by the website and check out some cool stuff we have there. Again, thank you for subscribing to The Funnel. And as always, keep filling the funnel.